بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. In today's class, we are going to talk about the Milkiyah, which is the theory of ownership. Like I told you in the last class, that there were a couple of chapters that we discussed earlier, like the theory of property, the theory of rights, and then this a theory of ownership. You need to look into together, because it is always interrelated. And some of the examples you will find in all these three chapters. But the differences are just, when we talk about the theory of property, we talked about the definition of property and the classification of properties. So you have valuable, non-valuable, you have movable, immovable, perishable, non-perishable, homogeneous, similar, non-homogeneous, dissimilar. Then we talked about intellectual property, right? So these are the properties, we talked about it. We also discussed the consequences. The next one, we talked about the rights. So when we talked about the rights, we started talking about Allah's rights and humans' rights. Huququllah, huququl ibad. Then we talked about the mushtarak, which is the combined rights. Then we discussed some other kind of right, financial rights, non-financial rights. We talked about the classification of the rights. So we talked about the rights that can be waived, that cannot be waived, the, the rights that can be inherited and that cannot be inherited. And then finally, we talked about the misuse and abuse of rights. So you got the clear picture about the property and the rights, the hukuk. Now we are going to talk about something related, which is actually milkiyah, ownership. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to cover all these things that you see right now. We're going to start with definition of private ownership. The most important thing, that what are the causes for the acquisition of ownership? How do you become the owner? What are the causes? What makes you owner? Then we will talk about the complete ownership and incomplete ownership. Yeah, sometimes you are the owner, but you are not complete owner. You are incomplete owner. Then there are three different varieties of different kinds of incomplete ownership. We're going to talk about it. Then we're going to talk about the main characteristics of ownership over usufruct, right? So you have one thing called ownership over usufruct, over ownership over property. Then what are the main characteristics of ownership over usufruct? All right. Then we're going to talk about also the important one, the restrictions on ownership rights. What are the restrictions you have? What you can do, what you cannot do. So now you see ownership from this title, from this chapter, but the rights comes from the previous chapter. So you have ownership rights. So you have property, ownership, rights. So you can put it together. Is there any property that individual cannot own? Yes, there are few properties. It's meant for public, not for private, according to Sharia, like what Prophet ﷺ said. So we're gonna discuss all this today. Let us start with the introduction. As you know that the real owner, the ultimate, the absolute owner of everything, who is he? He is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قل لمن ما في السماوات والأرض قل لله. Right? This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself asking Prophet to ask everybody. These heavens and earth belong to who? It belongs to Allah. So we are all relative owners. We cannot become the absolute owners. We are not the eternal owner. So if I am the owner of this house, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is owner of me. Then He is the King of kings, ruler of rulers, owner of owners. Right? That's why Quran in many verses talks about the ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alright? Ownership is a part of human nature. Of course, every human wants to keep it so that he can actually utilize it, he can use it. If there is no ownership, then people will not maintain the property, people will not benefit from the property. That's why the ownership is there. So Islam, Sharia, therefore recognize and upholds an individual rights to private property and ownership. And the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, this is also the ticket from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although He is the only absolute owner, but He also keeps on saying in Quran, Amwalukum, Malukum, which means that He relates the wealth to us. Sometimes He says their wealth, sometimes He says your wealth, somebody's wealth, which means Allah Himself recognized that every human being can have the ownership. But this is not absolute. Like every right, this is not actually absolute ownership, this is relative ownership. We are keeping it. It doesn't mean that I can do anything I want. Let's say I own a goat, right? I'm not allowed to torture it. I'm not allowed to, torture it. I'm not allowed to hurt the goat. I'm the owner of the goat. But when the right time comes, I can slaughter with the word Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and then I can eat. But I'm not allowed to torture it. I have a chicken, I have any other animals that I'm not eating, let's say, I cannot. If I have a cat, which I cannot eat, of course, if I have a cat, I am not allowed, even though I bought the cat for, let's say, 1,000 ringgit, a Russian cat, yeah? But it doesn't mean that I can hurt it. The same thing goes to non-living things. I have a phone, I have a car, I have a book, I have a pen, anything. I cannot misuse it, I cannot abuse it. I have a laptop. If I abuse it, I must be accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Each and everything, This is what Prophet said. Halaluha hisabun wa haramuha iqabun. This is the world, this is the dunya. In this dunya, every halal in this dunya. I mean, let me start with haram. Every haram in this dunya is of course prohibited. If someone abuse haram, he will be punished. So every haram in this world is actually will be punished. What about every halal? You think every halal will be rewarded? Because haram is punished, then halal must be rewarded. Halal can be rewarded, but every single halal in this world is actually questionable. That's why halaluha hisab. Hisab means questionable, accountable. So each and every time you have your breakfast, you have your lunch, you are enjoying your homestay, you are enjoying your phone, you are enjoying your trip, you are enjoying your family, everything must be audited. Let's put it in that word because we are from economics, yeah? Every single halal will be audited without answering the questions from Malaika. On the day of the judgment, we cannot move our feet from one place to another place. From where you earn, from how did you spend? This is the first question will be asked. This is the most important question. From where you earn, you need to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, I earned this in this way. I earned this in this way. It was what happened. Every single transaction you have to answer to Allah. So remember that. We keep on reciting this Maliki Yawmiddin. Every single prayer 17 times a day we recite it. Maliki Yawmiddin. What does it mean? He is the Malik, he is the owner, he is the judge, he is the king of the day of judgment. Yawmuddin. Yawmuddin is actually Yawmul Hisab, the day of judgment. What is the day of judgment? Judgment will not be given just, looking at you and then say, okay, you are innocent. No. Judgment takes years in this world. You can see that many cases are going on, keep on going. There was a judgment in India. It took 27 years. 27 years. Just one judgment. So in many places, in many part of the country, this is the case. In Akhirah, there will be many years that we have to wait and answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? With that note, let me start giving you the definition. What is the definition? It refers to a right over property which exclude others and enables the owner to make use of the property itself or its right. Remember the word when it comes to definition, the the property, which means ownership, is a right to over property. Which with that right, what you can do? With that right, you can exclude others using it. Let's say your phone, which means others cannot use it. Your car, which means others cannot use it. With your permission, they can use. But generally speaking, others cannot use. Your laptop, which means others cannot use it. That's why it is your laptop. If the computer is in public, then everybody can use it because that's not your computer, because this is public computer. Okay, if it is your laptop, your phone, your money, then it is yours. So you can make use of the property itself or its usufruct. However, in certain situation, a person could be restrained from exercising, right? From exercising ownership right over his property. You may be the owner of the property, but you cannot exercise the ownership. That's because of the few reasons. Like for example, if someone is minor, he has a house, he cannot sell his house. He can stay in the house. Insanity, prodigality, sufha, we call it. Sufha means someone spent unnecessarily. Someone spent all the time, overspending. Prodigal, we call it sufha, and bankruptcy. If you are bankrupt, you are not allowed to use your own uh, property, even though you are the owner, but your property must be given back to the bank, right? So these are the exceptions are there. Okay, now you
Okay.
have to understand three causes of ownership. Very simple. Number one, through contract. How can you become the owner? Number one, you can become the owner through contracts. You say, saya beli, saya jual. If someone give you as a gift, donation, or you become the partner, or someone write a will, wasiyah, someone write a will on your name. Okay, he says that after I die, this is yours. All these contracts will make you the owner. Number two, inheritance. Whatever our fathers, parents left behind, those things will come to us, right? This one is what called inheritance. First possession, number three. Okay, number three, first possession. Well, like natural resources. You go to hunting and you hunt something and you are the first person. You go to fishing and you fish something. You are the first person to get that fish. All right. So you are the first person to do that, then it becomes to you. You go there, you are in not in somebody's property, you are not in the private property, you are in the public property and you got something, some fruits, possibly some vegetables from the from from natural, sorry, some public forest, then it is yours. So first possession is yours. So these three causes, remember contract, number two, inheritance, number three, possession. Then you have the divisions of ownership. Like for example, complete ownership, meaning to say you have a property, you are living in that house and you are using the house. So you are the complete owner of the house. What if you have the house, but you let someone stay in the house? Right? You are, it's your house, but you don't stay in that house. It is your car, but you are not using the car. You give it to somebody to use the car. You give it to somebody to stay in the house. Then it is called incomplete ownership. Right? Okay. Complete ownership, And then the incomplete ownership, sorry, incomplete ownership has a three types of ownership. Let me give you one by one. The first one is going to land, the second one going to property, the third one going to usufruct. So let us start one by one. These are the incomplete ownership. The first type of incomplete ownership called hukuk al-ittifaq, which means you are the owner of the land, you are the owner of the house, but there are few things that everybody can use it. For example, water irrigation, the path, the road, for example, right? In front of your house, there is a road. In beside your house, there is a garden, taman garden. So these are the places everybody can come and use that place, because there is this, of course, public property, but this is public property to you because you live in that place. So now you have the right to use. For example, you live in apartment and you have the swimming pool. Are you owner of the swimming pool? I know you are owner
No,
of the apartment. Are you owner of the swimming pool? There is a
no,
yes. There is a yes. There is a no. Yes, of course, no, because you are not owner of the proper swimming pool. But yes, you are partially owner of the swimming pool. You are partially owner of the swimming pool because you bought apartment, a unit from that apartment, from that condo. Then there is a lift, there is a swimming pool, which means you also subject to use it. You are entitled to use that swimming pool. So it is called partial ownership. You understand? The second one is actually over property, ownership over property. I just gave you example before this. I told you you have a house, but you don't stay there. Instead, you give it to somebody, then you become the owner of the house, but still somebody living in that house. So it is called what? Ownership over property. Then again become the number C, that the third type of ownership, I mean partial ownership, incomplete ownership, is ownership over usufruct. Like I told you, this time you are the person who lives in the inside the house, but you are not the owner, so you are renting the house. You are the tenant of the house. You are renting, so you become the owner of the usufruct. You are sitting down in the grab car. So you are not the owner of the car, but you are owner of the usufruct. So for that 20 minutes, 30 minutes, particular minute, you are the owner for that rental. So it is called. It can be also obtained through borrowing, not only necessary rental. Let's say you borrow a bike from your friend. While you are borrowing, you are the owner of the usufruct. Same thing goes to endowment. Same thing goes to will, right?
Sir,
Yes, please.
sir, can you explain again about the Grab example?
Okay, when someone is the owner of the Grab, I mean, someone is owner of the car, he's actually complete owner. He has a complete ownership. But when he is letting you in, when, for example, you are the person who apply for the Grab, and then you got it, the moment Grab comes to you and you are getting in right now, you and the owner of the Grab is in agreement, saying that I have to go from this place to that place. So for this particular 20 minutes, you have to be there because you are enjoying the usufruct, the benefit of the car. So both of you right now are owner of something, but it consider incomplete ownership, because for that moment the grab car is also yours, is also for the driver. The driver, of course, is the owner of the car, but he cannot kick you away after he take you in. Am I right? Which is
Yes, sir.
actually something against of the policy. So right now, as long as you are sitting in that car, you are subject entitled to use all kind of usufruct like aircon, music, perfume, the seat, sofa, the seat, also the boot, you can put something behind. So everything that you can also have extra person coming together with you. So this is what we call the ownership of the usufruct. Right now, you can put the same example in everything.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So, sir, can we say that staying in Mahalah is ownership of usufruct
Exactly, you are paying, of course.
or complete or incomplete?
It is incomplete.
All right.
That's why you are not allowed to break any chair or table, all right? Don't do that, yeah? So you are not allowed to break the bathroom when you are angry at your lecturer. When your lecturer gives you more assessment and you are angry, and then you show it in the bathroom, and then you break some doors. So it is not allowed because you have only partial. It is actually partial ownership because you are only there to enjoy the usufruct. Of course, you can go and complain if there is a problem in management. Of course, you have to go and complain and keep on complaining until they get it done. There is no water, there is no pipe, the pipe is broken. Don't just stay in your room. Go to the Mahalla office again and again and again every single day. Go and show your face until they fix it in a polite way. Okay. But you have to try to do it. You need to inform the authority that we are living here, but we don't have enough facility. It is up to you because you pay for it. So you get what you pay for it. In everything, not only here, everything. You go outside, you buy something, it's not good, the food is bad, go back and then complain and tell them, okay, the food is not, this is not what I paid for. Can you please change it? Can you please refund? All right. So stand in your way. So example, okay, I give you the example already. Okay, next go to the characteristic of ownership over usufruct. Okay, we are again talking about the same thing. The questions that you've been asking right now. What are the characteristics of ownership over usufruct? Number one, it is restricted to time, place, and condition because it is restricted because you are only owner for 20 minutes. You are only owner for one semester. You are only owner for a few months, right? It is also subjected to certain conditions and restriction. You cannot do this, but of course you can sit down in Grab, but you cannot drive Grab. Subjected. You can stay in the house, but you cannot modify the house. You cannot, build or redesign the house. You are only, stay. You will stay. Is a subjected. So certain conditions. All right. Number three, non-transferable upon death to the heirs according to Hanafi. However, according to majority, it is possible. Remember why it is non-transferable according to Hanafi, but it is transferable according to majority. Anyone can give me the answer. I know some of you know the
Because
answer.
Moha-
Yes.
because Hanafi only consider land as the immovable property.
No. Okay, next.
Because it have financial value.
Yeah, close. Next. We are talking about number three. Number three. Why usufruct is non-transferable upon death according to Hanafi, but according to majority it is transferable. Yes, Noor Arjina.
Because if the Yusufat, for example, if we in this ijara, the ownership will be terminated if the owner of the things is dead.
Yeah, true. But why?
because Hanafi does not consider intangible asset as asset.
Very good, Faizuddin. You already got the answer second time, huh? Okay, that is the right answer. Because Hanafi do not consider usufruct as a property. They do not consider. Remember, in the theory of property, we talked about it. I thought you prepared already because you were doing your quiz. I thought everybody knew the answer. So which means Hanafi, according to them, usufruct is not a property. But majority, they say, as long as there is a financial value, it is property. So now the usufruct can be transferred. So if I live in a house as a rental house, I'm renting a house, and if any reason I passed away, so my son can continue renting because it is a transferable. But according to Hanafi, it is not. My son has to make a new agreement to the landlord, to the landowner, to the house owner. All right. Number 4, trust contract. Remember, this is a trust contract. If the property destroyed or becomes defective or beneficial ownership is not held responsible unless a negligence is proven. All right. So it's a trust contract, cannot be destroyed, cannot be defective. A beneficial ownership, number 5, not responsible for the maintenance. Remember this. The usufruct beneficial owner, the owner of the the owner of the usufruct is not responsible for the maintenance or expenses of the leased property. Remember, in ijara, in renting, he is not responsible for the maintenance. But in i'ara, remember, it is opposite. In i'ara, in borrowing, he is responsible for maintenance. Example, you rent out a car and then you keep it for 5 days, you renting, and there is any maintenance problem, you have to get back to the owner and ask him to pay for the maintenance. By the same case, same scenario, you borrow a car for 5 days from your friend and there is a maintenance coming in that car, you have to do it. You cannot ask your friend to pay for it. Does it sound good or bad? You always used to borrow, huh? See, sometimes we borrow motorbike and we don't even fill the petrol. How many of us, we borrow our friend's motorbike, but we don't fill the petrol. We finish the petrol and give it back. Or we give our motorbike to our friends, and how many times our friends finish all the petrol and didn't give it back. It happens, right? Okay, remember, they talk about even maintenance. If there is an oil change in the motorbike, the friend must do it because he borrowed it. He didn't pay for it. He borrowed it. That is the difference. So be careful when you borrow something because you are responsible for the maintenance. Okay, what are the restrictions on ownership rights? Okay, this is also very important. Remember, there are two kind of things that we're gonna talk about. Number 1, okay, petrol considered maintenance, sir? No, I was telling, even petrol, there are people who use it and don't, they use it, but they don't put it back. That is actually, that is even, that one is actually most, what do you call it? It's a wrong thing to do. You borrow a bike from someone and then you use it, but when you give it back, you don't even put the petrol on it. That is unethical. Right? But what I'm talking here, let's say there's a maintenance for the bike, right? Because you've been using it. So let's say you are using it for 1 month. Make sure that when you give it back, you change the black oil, uh, oil hitam, and then you give it back because you have to do the maintenance. But when you are renting the same motorbike, when you return back, you don't have to do that. That is the difference. Okay. Now we are talking about the restrictions related to acquisition. Remember here, don't get confused. There are two different things. Remember all the time. Restrictions relate to acquisition of ownership. Number one, what are the restrictions to acquire ownership? So you see, I cannot acquire property in this way. What are the ways that you cannot acquire? You cannot become the owner. The next one is restriction relate to utilization. Okay, once you have your property, what are the ways that you cannot use the property? Remember the first one, what are the ways that I should not acquire the property? The second one, what are the ways that I should not use my property? Okay, acquiring property. I cannot acquire property or public properties. Public means benefits to meant to benefit all. I cannot even buy a land where it's actually beneficial to meaning to say I cannot buy an island because island is actually for everybody and people. There are some companies even selling islands. The forest, for example, the ocean, for example, the river, the lake. Not someone can buy the lake because it belongs to everybody. It's a natural resources. Also, I cannot own any prohibited things such as wine, pigs, etc. I cannot because it is prohibited. All right. I have to also, I cannot own anything through unlawful means. For example, I can buy house, I can buy car, but can I buy house through gambling? Can I
No.
can I buy car through doing the smuggling, through cheating? Can I buy my car through corruption, like what they call it, rashwa, raswa? In Arabic, it's actually rashwa. In Arabic, in Malay, raswa, the same thing. Can I buy something stealing? Can I buy halal chicken by haram money? It's a halal chicken, but my pocket I have haram money, so I have to be careful with that. Yes, private island. What about private island, sir? This is the problem. There is no private island unless they have different. According to my knowledge, the land. I mean the the island actually. The island is the part of the sea. It has so many natural minerals. It has to go to everybody. How do you call it private island? is it is it did he buy that land from someone like we used to buy today, right? Unless they have some other reasons, I'm not so sure about it, but to me all those islands are natural, mineral, natural, and it belong to public. um, okay, what are the restrictions related to utilization? Remember, now we are talking about the utilization. You bought it already. Now what are the things you can do, what are the things you cannot do? Of course, all the Muslims commanded to spend his wealth, their wealth, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make sure that you pay zakat so that you can purify your properties, because zakat is actually purifying, because there are so many haram things comes and goes. Only zakat can purify your property. Also, I should not waste anything. It's my own. I cannot waste it. Also, if I have something, I should invest it so that I can boost the economy. I cannot just keep it. I have 100,000 ringgit. I cannot keep it in the bank all the time without, I have some gold, I keep it all the time. No, I have to invest it so that I can create more job opportunities. All right. I cannot also violate other people's right. I cannot, for example, I have my own house. I cannot build it. I cannot build like a what they call it, skyscrapers, sky skyscrapers. Am I right? Skyscrapers or skyscrapers? Yes.
Skyscraper, sir.
What is it? Skyscrapers, right?
Scrapper.
Oh, sorry.
Skyscraper.
Okay, thank you. Skyscrapers. So now I build it. Is good if it is in the public place, if it is in the place where no one is getting hurt. But I have my house, my neighbor is living, and suddenly I'm building the wall. I'm actually abstracting the light and air. I'm making it congestion. I'm building the window so that I can see somebody's house. This is all actually violating other people's right. All right. Okay, let's talk about the abuse of ownership. All right. So when there is a right of ownership is abused, of course, the state may interfere. All right. Let's say someone has a land and he started burning something in his land, his own land. Why do you care? His own things that he's burning his papers or whatever it is. But if it gives problem to everybody because the air, the smoke comes out when you are burning something, right? So the police will come, they have to interfere to regulate. Regulation is very important. The government may also impose a restriction upon development and construction and construction in a certain area and property. Owners are bound to follow them as they cannot develop their lands according to their own wishes. I can also see in Kuala Lumpur, many places, also in Selangor, some other places as well. Um, you know, there are patterns of houses. It looks same because it is good if it is looks same. If everybody given chance to build on their own, then you know there is no ventilation, and then they get extra space in the road, and everybody will get, they will not get it properly. I mean, they won't get the free passes. I mean, they won't get the proper passes, the way to go. Right now, you can see the space in between, in front of the house. This is what we talk about the urban life. If it is a rural life, is a different. In Kampong, you have different kind of building the houses. You have enough space, so you can build as you wish. But in urban, you don't have much spaces, so that you have to follow protocols. If you want to build additional floors, you have to ask permission, whether, because you may do it, but it might hurt others. Meaning to say that while you are building or after you build, if that the foundation is not good enough, then it might fall down. If it fall down, everybody get hurts. Also, if you have the land, make sure that you cultivate it. You have your crops, you harvest it. You cannot have the land and you do nothing. Remember that. It is actually strictly, prohibited in starting from the Prophet ﷺ period. Because once Prophet ﷺ himself gave some land to Bilal radiallahu anhu. But during the Khalifa Umar period, Bilal was quite busy with da'wah and he was not able to do the cultivating. You know what Umar did? Umar asked the land back. Can you believe? The land was given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then everybody said, "How come? How come? How can you ask Bilal the land that was given by the Prophet?" The Umar said, "But he is not using it. He is not cultivating it. It is now becoming the dead land." You know, agriculture, how important it is. Because Umar said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the land to Bilal so that Bilal can cultivate it. But now Bilal, radiallahu anhu, is not able to do it because he's busy with da'wah. So Umar said, okay, we can give it back. And then you see Bilal just gave it back. Bilal didn't say anything. Bilal gave it back to him, and then Hazrat Umar gave it to somebody so that someone. So you have the land, you cannot just keep it if it's agricultural land I'm talking about. You have to do the cultivation so that it can go, it can be beneficial to everybody. And the government also has the right to take the private land in order to build highways. You know, it happens sometimes, because of the development of the urban system. because of the development of the place, infrastructure development, suddenly your house, your road can become the highway, can become, maybe there is a bridge comes on the top of your house. So government has all the right to take it, but government will give you different place, maybe better than that place or good one. They have to offer. It's like a ransom. Yeah. It may also regulate the utilization of private property in accordance with the public interest. For example, price ceiling or price control of certain essential commodities could be implemented in the public interest. Yeah, everything goes to public interest, public utilities, right? Government can actually control the price, right? For essential commodities, they say, okay, you cannot sell sugar more than this. You cannot sell vegetables more than this. Even though you have all the right to sell sugar for 5 ringgit, it is halal, but government will come and say you cannot sell for 5 ringgit because it is essential commodities. Whatever the not essential, it's a luxury commodities, is a different thing. But essential one has to be, it is actually government job to do. Not necessarily Sharia has to do, government has to do this. Okay, what are the last one, what are the properties that cannot be owned? Remember, Prophet ﷺ said Muslims are partners in three. Number one, grass. Number two, water. Number three, fire. This hadith has a lots and lots of meaning. This is where you're gonna think about the public property and private property. This is where I also come up with my own opinion saying about island, because I think island also comes between this grass, water, and fire. What is grass today? Today, grass is the forest. All the green items, greeneries, forest. What is water? You know water. All these water, lake, river, ocean, everything has to be public. We are not paying for the water, we are only paying for the piping of the water. For the service that water comes to you, you are not able, you cannot pay for the water. You only pay for the bottle of the water. Remember that. Because water is something amazing, something, there is no, it is invaluable. It's more, you cannot make water because water comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one who brought water to this universe, this earth especially. So we have to be careful with water. So grass, all kind of forest, greeneries and everything has to be public. Water must be public, cannot be privatized. When it become private, tomorrow there is going to be a war. Remember this, note it down. There is going to be a water war. There are some countries, I don't want to mention the name, there are some countries are building dams for two purposes. One is, if they open the dam, if they open the dams, the neighboring country will be in flood. Number two, they are building dams and they are keeping the water so that tomorrow when you need water, when the neighboring countries need water, they can sell it in double price. So water will become the next economy. And fire, there might be so many meanings of fire. Fire is actually something that we are burning. Something could be used for the light. So it could be petrol, it could be electricity, it could be any nuclear power, it could be anything. All these things must be public. This is what Prophet ﷺ said. Also, the natural resources like public pastures, forests, rivers, inland water resources, soil resources, wildlife, land, mountains, mines, minerals, everything must be public property. All right. So I think okay, again, okay, there are some more. This includes rivers, forests, mountains, minerals, soil resources. These resources belong to the people. And also these resources should be under the supervision of the state, not under the supervision of the public, of the private company, not under the supervision of the corporate, international corporate company, because they are private. It must be under the supervision of the state. The state should manage them either directly or through private companies for the common welfare of the people. However, companies cannot claim ownership of the forest, for instance, but they can only be authorized to do logging activities in the certain area of the forest for the limited. And they will say, okay, I will give you permission license for a few months. You can clear this area. So clearing the forest for the sake of urbanization, it is possible. For the sake of, if the government, if the state allow that. All right. So, okay. And then in certain situation, it is possible for the public property is transferred into private property. All right, like just now I told you, public property, it was public property. Prophet ﷺ gave it to Bilal, so it can become private property just for a purpose. What was the purpose? What was the purpose? So that he can revive the dead land. So now, if someone, whoever revives dead land, has the right of ownership to it. This is what Prophet ﷺ said. And I see so many dead land in Malaysia. You can go and get it, you can revive it, you can bring agricultural product, you can become the agricultural company, then the land belongs to you, as long as you are, because that is the purpose of the land, that it has to cultivate, it has to be cultivated, it has to give you crops. If not, there is no purpose of that. It will become the dead land. There's a fertility in that land, right? There's a fertility. If you do not use it, then that land will die. So Prophet ﷺ said, whoever revives that land has the right of ownership to it. This is amazing hadith. There are some other properties also which cannot be used by individuals, like mosque, of course, for everybody, graveyard, and waqf. Everything that waqf cannot be used for individual, it is for public. Properties that belong to public treasury, for example, Baitul Mal, treasury, cannot be owned by individual. For example, the national defense, security apparatus, the taxation system, the judicial system, the educational system, the medical and health services, also the infrastructure, public highways, bridges, public libraries, public park, all these cannot become private property. It has to be public property. All right. That's all from me. And here is this is your